Irvine down the outside of Irvine. This is for position. They're going to touch. They're both out of the race.
Mika Häkkinen comes through to win in Spain.
It's race day at Barcelona's Spanish Grand Prix. The World Championship favourite fancies his chances.
I think it's our year, honestly. I'm absolutely sure. We have done always a very good job. We've always been up front, we've always been fast enough, and I think it will be our year.
Hello there, welcome to ITV's trackside studio. So Michael Schumacher, very confident indeed, and Schumacher also quickest in this morning's warm-up. David Coulthard starting fourth after a quite harrowing week, and we will be hearing from both of them. The local forecasters, you know, have been assuring us it's going to rain today. There's plenty of cloud around the Circuit de Catalunya, but at the moment it is dry. Okay, let's have a word with Tony Jardine. Tony, this place suits McLaren, and very much like Silverstone a couple of weeks ago, those Supermax need the points badly here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very technical track, so it suits a very good handling chassis and very efficient aerodynamics, which McLaren have. But unfortunately for them, so now too do Ferrari. So Ron Dennis is saying, look, we've got to keep eating away at their lead all the time, and that means winning. Häkkinen's on the front row, but it's all down to the start. And as we know, overtaking here is difficult. The start is everything.
Here's Schumacher getting his pole 40 minutes into yesterday's qualifying session.
Yeah, he's never relaxing at all. He's never happy. He's always experimenting. He's gone off on his own route with harder tyres. He started off doing 2 flying laps, then he put it down to 1 flying lap, and toward 3/4 of the way through the session he did this sensational lap, and still he made 1 or 2 mistakes. He was still experimenting, finding all the parameters of this Ferrari, and he's equalled Mika Häkkinen's pole position record of 24.
Yeah, doing very much his own thing there, but how do you explain the speed at almost 1.5 seconds quicker than Häkkinen was last year?
One of the big things, we were talking to Jarno Trulli, and he was saying one of the big things is the tyre development from Bridgestone over the winter and through the year, and they've got so much more grip than they ever had before, and he said that's worth nearly a second a lap on last year's time. So that's one of the big explanations. Of course, the rest of the developments and aerodynamics and engines all go together, and it's quite a big jump.
What do you make of David Coulthard's performance in qualifying and indeed his chances this afternoon?
Well, I think it's very brave anyway. He's been very, very focused on the job, and got a big pat on the back for him. He went out earlier on and he had the fastest time in the first section, but he had to abort the lap because of fuel feed problems. So he hadn't got a time on the clock. He went into the pits. The spare car is all set up for Mika Häkkinen. But what they did in the end, they put more fuel into the car, which helped eradicate the fuel feed problems. Then he went out and still set fourth. And by the way, he says, I won the British Grand Prix from fourth place. Don't forget that.
It's worth just emphasising that grid positions are so important here because it is very, very tough to overtake.
Yes, it is. And Michael Schumacher, his first pole of the year. Mika Häkkinen has got to make a really, really good start. Just behind him he was, of course, on the grid. Still a great qualifying run from him. Barrichello hoping for much better luck and reliability from the Ferrari that they had last year. And Coulthard, that fourth place, we said. Villeneuve, he made a brilliant start last year. Ralf Schumacher only 0.2 of a second behind the Ferrari. He said that's absolutely brilliant. Relatively trouble-free for the twins there, Trulli and Frentzen, and they're hoping to get in the points today. And Irvine, well set up, he went the wrong way. Button said, not my best, not my worst, still learning this track. Verstappen, some mystery technical problems there, he knows not what. Salo had a good clear run, no problems for him, but problems for Fisichella and for Benetton. No grip whatsoever. Herbert, his last run, he messed up on that, he admitted that. Deniz and Zonta, who's still disappointing me and a lot of others, I'm afraid, not performing quite as well. Alesi, they had problems with hydraulics. Wirtz, no grip, same situation for him.
A real story at the back though, Tony.
Yeah, Heidfeld there, Genet, his home Grand Prix, and then unfortunately Della Rosa, contaminated fuel after that sensational 9th place, has been put at the very back of the grid. All his times disallowed from qualifying. A shame for his home Grand Prix.
That really is tough for the Spaniard Pedro Della Rosa. Well, David Coulthard has followed Mika Häkkinen home here for the last couple of years. Coulthard actually made his Formula One debut at this Catalunya circuit something like 6 years ago, and as he tries to repeat his Silverstone triumph, the Scot knows his every move will be closely scrutinised.
David Coulthard wins the British Grand Prix by just 1.4 seconds from Mika Häkkinen.
The Scot provides us with a home winner. He relishes his appearance on top of the podium. Fiancée Heidi positively glows with pride. Then, last Tuesday, their private jet crash lands at Lyon, en route to Coulthard's Monaco base. They survive, along with his personal trainer. Both British pilots are killed. In Barcelona, McLaren decide a statement is the best method of feeding the media frenzy.
On impact, the plane's wing tanks ruptured and there was a fire on the right-hand side of the aircraft. When the plane finally came to a rest, the front of the cockpit had broken free from the main fuselage. At this point, we established the only way out was through the front, and Andy led the way through the debris. And as this part was 3 or 4 feet off the ground, I followed to enable Heidi to be able to get down from the aircraft. Once we were all clear of the plane, I returned to the plane to see if there was anything I could do for the pilots, but there was nothing I could do to help.
Controlling your emotions and coping with tragedy is an essential part of a Grand Prix driver's existence. But this horrendous experience has affected Coulthard's outlook on life.
Oh, absolutely. You know, you can't have a situation like that which brings you so close to the realities of how fragile we are on this earth, and not have, you know, a change in some way. You know, I also felt very close to Heidi beforehand, but I have an increased sense of how lucky I am in my life and what I have. You know, I don't live in the real world being a Grand Prix driver. You know how lucky we are that we get to compete, to drive our cars, and get paid for it. You know, our hobbies, our passion. And it's made me realise just really the importance of family and friends, and you know, really to, you know, I felt I was pretty focused before, but I feel a renewed focus and a renewed determination to get as much out of every day as possible.
Drawing a line under that then, and looking to the Spanish Grand Prix, how have you physically been in the car? Have you had any problems?
No, not really. You know, I've got a few little bruises, but that is not at all going to affect the way I can drive the car. Obviously, I expect to be a little bit more sore come Sunday evening than would be for a normal Grand Prix, because I'm starting in slightly worse physical condition. But the important thing for me was, from my first lap on Friday, I was quick, focused, and thinking about how I can get the most out of the car.
Through 96 and 97, teammates to Häkkinen, you pretty much had the upper hand on him. 98 and 99 have clearly been his 2 years. I felt at Silverstone you looked as if you were on the point of redressing that balance once again. Do you think you've lost that momentum now with all the things that have happened to you recently?
Well, clearly the preparation for this race hasn't been at all good, but I think that getting to the track, getting back into a normal routine helps renew the focus. And you know, I think, as I mentioned at the time, I was actually surprised how easy that race was to win. And I know people can say there's all sorts of circumstances that led to me leading the race and winning the race, but the fact is I was there standing on top of the podium in front of the two, you know, double-time world champions. And I know that what I need to do and continue to do is be in front of Mika and Michael when I get to the first corner. Now, qualifying hasn't been my greatest strength in the past, but I believe I've been getting closer and closer. I've been improving as a driver, and still feel that I've got more to go. I'm hoping and believe that they've been closer to the limit in terms of their experience and their age and what have you within the sport. And I know that if I can get in front of them, then I have them beat. There was no attack from either of them once I have track position.
So given all that then, what result would you be happy with to go away from Barcelona?
Well, winning is what's going to make me happy. Anything else is going to be a disappointment. But obviously you have to get through the race weekend, and you know, sometimes, like in Brazil, finishing second was a good result given the problems I had. If I have a car which works well and I drive to the best of my abilities, then winning is the only option.
And closing in on Michael Schumacher in the points table.
Yep. absolutely. It's Michael's got a bit of an advantage there, but as we've seen in the past, that can be overturned very quickly. And I'm taking every race that comes and trying to give it 100%.
Well, David Coulthard's in for a painful 1.5 hours or so, carrying those bumps and bruises. He knows this circuit is one of the most physical tracks of the year. 4 big right-hand corners putting huge stress on all the drivers. Let's go on a flying lap then with Barcelona boy Pedro de la Rosa. It's Martin Brundle to talk you round.
On board with Pedro de la Rosa in the arrows now. The exit speed from the last corner into the pit straight is absolutely crucial as you head down the long undulating run towards turn 1. A lot of wing carried here, so only 195 miles an hour before braking. Very, very late. Tremendous grip. Just 75 miles an hour in second gear now. De La Rosa playing with the throttle into turn 3, and you can't go flat out until you're absolutely sure you've got enough space on the exit without running onto the grass. A short squirt up to 180 miles an hour before turn 4. Bring it in early. There's a lot of ripples here. The car starts to walk to the outside. A little surprise just as you get there, and switch immediately to the other side for turn 5. Just 55 miles an hour, and again he'll struggle to get the power down on the way out. This is called turn 6, but it's absolutely easy as you feed the car at 160 miles an hour into the foot of 7. Turn in early, cheat a little bit on the exit, get the car as straight as you can, head up the hill 155 miles an hour for the blind number 9 corner Campsa. Watch the exit, nasty bumps, diagonal straight towards La Caxa 10. Brake incredibly late and then get in early. There's a lot of grip on the inside. Now watch him load and unload the front tyres, play with the throttle, anything to keep the car going forwards, and catapult into turn 11, just 70 miles an hour. Cling to the inside. There's some strange bumps on the exit, then a short straight before you sweep through 12, 140 miles an hour, building further to 165 now. Brace yourself for the last corner. Just lift the throttle slightly. There's just enough room on the exit and you're into the pit straight. This was top 10 for De La Rosa, but turned out to be a lot of hard work for nothing later on.
Yeah, poor old Pedro starting down the back. Meantime, the Jordans of Frentzen and Jarno Trulli, they start on the 4th row. Last year, Jordan finished 3rd in the championship, best of the rest, as it were, behind the big 2, Ferrari and McLaren. But this time round, well, the Silverstone-based team have been slow to get their act together.
Last year the streets were paved with gold, but so far this season Jordan have failed to shine. Reliability's been their downfall, just 3 finishes from 8 race starts. So what's gone wrong?
We had to make a conscious effort designing this car that the technology that we had was very good to be able to fight for 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th in the championship. But if we were ever going to catch the likes of McLaren and Ferrari, we had to make a different structure, and that structure was based on a much lighter car, much more scientific, much more aerodynamic, and much more braver, if you like, in terms of pushing the boundaries of technologies right to the limit. And in this case, it sort of bit us a little bit, but I'm pretty confident, I have to say, and I think that we will show great signs very soon.
Frentzen qualified 2nd at Silverstone and led for a time, but once again his gearbox let him down.
It's just a problem with the sensor. We've had some problems with vibration in a gearbox sensor that has been difficult to cure, but we've got a lot of new parts here. We actually identified the problem a long time ago, but it's taken us 5 weeks to get some of the more complex parts through, machined and heat treated, and all our suppliers have done a great job for us, but it's been frustrating. I mean, we've had some interim fixes that we thought would solve the problem, but it proved out that it didn't. But the test went well, and so we're confident that we've got that fixed for this weekend.
How confident?
Very confident. I hate putting my putting my neck on the line, but yeah, we're confident that it's been fixed fully.
But in the meantime, the team have been giving points away. Frentzen finished last year's championship in 3rd place, but he's currently lying 8th with just 4 points on the board.
It's not only the places we lost because of the trouble and the points we lost. It's also the way that it's stopped us as well on testing occasionally and developing the car in other areas. But I'm very optimistic that we will do a step forward the mid-season onwards and reducing the gap to McLaren and Ferrari. I'm 100% confident of that.
But there's still a way to go. Frentzen's 8th on the grid today, out-qualified for the first time by teammate Trulli in 7th. And with Williams showing ever more promise, that step forward can't come a moment too soon.
Well, Tony, how unsettling is it for them that their technical director, Mike Gascoigne, is on his way sometime in the future?
I think it could be very unsettling, to be honest. The drivers will be thinking, well, hang on, he's the mainstream man, he's the guiding light behind this car and everything. But I think we should look at it another way. They're top 3 team, yes, but they're not a manufacturer team. So always the big predators, the manufacturer-based teams, are going to go and target people like Jordan, unfortunately. The great thing about Mike is he's a real delegator, and there's a lot of talent throughout Jordan who could take over from him. I mean, Sam Michael is one guy who's Frenson's engineer, etc. So hopefully in long term, it shouldn't be too destabilising, so long as they don't send him off on gardening leave.
Do you think they've sorted out those reliability problems that have plagued them so far this season?
Well, it's such a difficult area, as Gascoigne was saying there, because it's a potentiometer, it's all the electronics. They knew the problem ages ago. It's actually getting it manufactured right.
Potentiometer was that again?
Potentiometer.
Okay.
It's a little thing in a gearbox there. You know?
Okay. Say a little thing in the gearbox like that.
Okay. So hopefully, what's been happening, it's been sticking in 6th gear. 2 races on the trot that did that for Frenson, and they've lost points. But he's running 2nd at the British Grand Prix and briefly led, so great shame for Jordan.
It isn't a great circuit for them. Lots of Jordan fans have made the trip to Spain. What can they expect this afternoon?
Well, I think they could get into the points. Jarno Trulli always goes very well here, but he's been affected by these sudden gusts of wind. I mean, you see the flags moving out here, and suddenly they're going in a different direction. You can imagine what that's doing to the aerodynamics of the car, and suddenly you lose the front end of it or whatever. Very, very difficult.
Okay, Tony, thank you very much indeed. Well, there goes Michael Schumacher having a little warm-up. We heard him at the start of our show saying this will be his and Ferrari's year. The bookies aren't disagreeing. The German 4-1 on to be world champion for a 3rd time, but he isn't one for statistics. He's happy to leave those to the anoraks.
You must have something inside you that says, OK, I want to match Fangio's 5 world championships. Nothing at all?
No, this is not my goal. I mean, you see, this goal to achieve the championship together with Ferrari, I think this is such a high target, such a high goal. I don't need to look into the past and drivers which I can't compare myself, which is different times. I'm a realistic man, and you can't compare the 1950s against the 2000s. That's impossible.
Now, it's 9 years since I've known you, but I guess that's probably a third of your life, almost, actually thinking about it. But there are people who think that you push the limits too far when the prize is very big, when there's something big to be gained. When the stakes are big, do you go too far? Do you push the limits too far?
I believe I did only once in my life, honestly, and that was a situation which was Jerez with Villeneuve. What I want to say is I went through the school of Mansell, Prost, Senna, and all this what has going on in competition at this time, and that's where I draw my conclusion from. I mean, you have the rules, and the rules taken care to what happens on the circuit, and you get a guideline, and my guideline is different than what you have today. I have to adapt to these guidelines what it is today, but at some stage they had changed, but they haven't changed without examples. And what happened to me, in my view, is that I was the first example, like in '97, where they said the first time, listen, this is unacceptable. What is right, what is wrong? I think the stewards do say that.
To be fair to you, in the end, you put your hand up for the Villeneuve thing and said, I made a mistake, I was wrong, and I won't do that again.
I did, but on the other side, in the past, it was okay to do things like this, even though I don't rate them okay. But what you do, I mean, you're not going to do it, you're going to be second. And people say, why didn't you do it? If you do it, you're going to look stupid, and you're going to be criticized by the other way. So what is right, what is wrong?
It's true. I mean, I've had people drive me off the road straight into the wall with no problems whatsoever in the past. But
exactly. I mean, we know this situation, and things have changed. And I mean, now we have had a little discussion yesterday about, for example, my start in Imola. And honestly, in the rule, it's allowed to change once the side, and if you do that, you're fine. And I did this, and Charlie said, or the FIA said, it's fine. But some people don't accept this, or some people think it is not right. You can argue whether it's right or it's wrong, but the rules do allow this, and I would lose a position if I don't do it. So what I have to do, I have to do it.
Okay, that was actually my next question. I mean, are you comfortable with? You're big on safety in Formula 1. We worked together on the GPDA after the death of Senna. You're still pushing like crazy on it.
Oh, yeah.
Are you comfortable with your start in Imola? Are you comfortable that was acceptable?
No, actually very much. I mean, if I would have put anyone into, I mean, being next to each other and put somebody on the grass or put somebody really in a difficult situation, I would agree with you, but I didn't. All the guy behind me had to do was to back off a bit. And I mean, in a normal overtaking situation, you go down the straight with me and Hill, for example, some years ago down in Canada. I had to back off a big time at 300 kilometers per hour This was 100 kilometers per hour. You can argue, is this right or not right? But then the rules have to be strict and say you cannot do it. But if you allow the drivers to do this, then some will do it and some will go to the limit. And I'm known to go for the limit, but I believe I'm not known to go really over the limit if I know what is the limit.
Okay, thanks for talking to us, Michael. Interesting as ever.
Pleasure.
Tony, do you see something of a conflict there between his driving style and his concern for driver safety?
No, not really, because he does intimidate, he is aggressive, he is adventurous, and those are the sort of moves that Michael Schumacher would make. The bloke is an absolute ace. And of course his competitors are all bound to complain. That was Grand Prix Drivers Association they were talking about, and the drivers were all at the meeting here, and it was Irvine that complained about that very adventurous move. But if you put it another way, Michael is very concerned about safety. He's very concerned at the moment that a car will go into the crowd, and that is that when cars with two hot tyres hit each other, one can be launched in the air, as poor Martin Brundle's car was ages ago in Australia. He wants some sort of guards on the back. He says the FIA should do something about the spectator safety. We take the risk, but they shouldn't.
Thanks, Tony. Well, coming up, we're going to go grid walking with Martin. We're going to examine the drive for peak fitness in Formula One as the countdown continues to the start of the Spanish Grand Prix. Well, it's still dry here. It's 21 degrees at Barcelona's Catalunya circuit. The wind swirls on the straights, the big corners wrench the neck muscles, the average speed around 125 miles an hour. You really have to be in shape to handle it. Louise Goodman reporting.
Engines scream as 15,000 RPM is unleashed. Bang through the gears 160 miles an hour before the first corner. The start of a Grand Prix puts tremendous strain on a Formula One car, and there's a long, hard race ahead. But what about the man behind the wheel? What kind of stresses is the driver subjected to? Well, the Benetton team have been carrying out research to answer that question.
The race is the most important, and it's for 1.5 hours. So we know exactly where my heart rate is, and now at home I know exactly where I have to train in which area. Okay, there are different heart rates. I'm training for building up my performance, but for specific training you can use this data separate. So the pain which I have when I take them off is worth it, of course.
So what's the heart doing? Well, an average driver's resting rate is about 45 beats a minute. That rises to 120 as the adrenaline starts to flow on the formation lap. The pressure really mounts on the grid. The heart rate rises to 150, and by the time the lights go out, it's up to 170 beats a minute. Ambient temperatures and physical exertion are another element. As the race wears on, the heart rate increases to 180, and a challenging corner or a tricky overtaking manoeuvre can see it peak at 200 beats a minute. And there are other factors to take into account. On some tracks, the cars are braking from 195 down to 60 miles an hour in a matter of metres.
You're pushing that to 4.5 Gs there. Now that is a multiple of the head and the helmet, which can basically equal anything between 16 to 20 odd kilograms. And when you think about it, if you add up all the corners and multiply that by the 65, 70 laps, whatever it is, and the driver's got to deal with that on, you know, every lap. As well as that, there's this thing called the Valsalva manoeuvre, which is a point where the driver literally hold their breath. They actually go into the corner, fight the G-force. It's like lifting a load. When you lift a load, you have to hold your breath to lift the load. Well, that shuts the oxygen off from the brain. So when the harder they push, or the later they brake, and the harder they push out the corner, the more the G-force, so the more the fatiguing element on that point. So you multiply that by the thousands of over 1,000 corners they're going to be doing, and you can see how the driver will get inner stresses.
Back at Benetton's High Performance Centre, the drivers are put through a rigorous training schedule to reproduce those stresses. A VO2 max machine analyses oxygen content, whilst a sophisticated biomechanical machine measures strength and resilience of the muscles.
We look at the data and we sit down with them and say, right, this is the areas, key areas you need to work on. It's not just us, we talk to the engineers and the management here to find out where they see the driver is not quite performing
on race day or on testing example, and we use that information, and that helps us put together programs.
The fitter the driver, the better he'll perform, physically and mentally. It takes more than just talent to drive a Formula One car.
So this is the sort of thing that perhaps as us as the armchair watcher don't really appreciate that's going on. There is an incredible demand on these drivers, and sometimes you've seen drivers that literally need to be carried out the car at the end of a race.
They're all in shape for the off, 15 minutes away, 65 laps, around about 191 miles. Tyre wear is very important here when it comes to race strategy. 2 stops is very much the norm, but has Michael Schumacher got an ace up his sleeve? Here's James Allen.
Today's race will be won on strategy, but I'm not just talking about pit stops. I'm also talking about tyres. Michael Schumacher has gone out on a limb and chosen the harder of the 2 Bridgestone compounds. Everyone else is on the soft. So why has he done it? Well, he says it gives him a better feel, but I think he's got something up his sleeve. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This is a typical soft tyre at the end of 22 lap stint, which is about what you'd do before you made your first pit stop here in Spain. Look at it, it's worn down almost to a slick. This is a hard tyre. As you can see, there's still plenty of tread left on it, but it's wearing down fast at the end of the stint. What Schumacher figured out before he came here is that the softer tyre drops off quite quickly at the start of a stint. For about 3 or 4 laps, it's worse than the harder tyre. And that's the moment when he's going to make his break and try and build some sort of unassailable lead. He has actually also got 3 new sets of tyres, whereas McLaren have only got 2. So how are they going to fight back? I think they'll do it in the middle part of the race. We saw in Imola, it's how long you have the fuel hose on for, how much fuel goes into the car at the first stops. That dictates how long a middle stint you run. And that's the area where McLaren are going to have to try and fight back. But for me, it looks as though Michael Schumacher has got all the aces in his hand.
Thanks, James. Well, they love a stroll down the Ramblas in Barcelona city centre, but when it comes to grid walking, he's the kiddie. There's only one Martin Brundle.
Hello, thank you, Jim. Sorry, I just realised I'm being rude with my sunglasses on, talking to you. Thought we'd do a slightly different grid walk today and just have a little wander around and a poke about. And had a bit of a hectic week, actually, and I'm running on a short fuse. If any of these prima donna racing drivers turn me down today, I might have a slap at them, actually. I thought we'd have a look into good chance to have a zoom in on this Ferrari. Very rarely we're allowed in, and just looking so closely at it. And I was just watching, just before we were thrown down here from the studio, Michael Schumacher was surrounded by 50, 60 people, some interviewing him, some just trying to shake his hand. And it's incredible, really, before a major sporting event. I'm trying to imagine a footballer taking a key penalty, having to put up with 40 or 50 people talking to him just before he takes a penalty. Let's go down the grid, because there's some fascinating ideas. Remember I showed you on the Brazilian grid poking our nose into the back of the McLaren? Well, I've noticed today there's so many more cars now. Look, they actually they're building a tent around the back of it, so we're not allowed to see any of the action. This is Mario Illionaire, who designs the engines for at Ilmor for Formula One, and he will hate us if we can get in there and see any kind of detail of how that they're going to fold the tent back now. Look, and then immediately look, 2 more guys are ready with the engine cover, so nobody, and still there's more covers underneath to make sure nobody can see the goodies and make sure that the other teams can't get an advantage. But here's a Ferrari, look, absolutely fully exposed. Normally you just can't get anywhere near one of these things when they're virtually together, but they're still checking the car, still tightening things up, and just those last minute checks. It always amazes me how much they've got to do. Don't you sometimes wonder who all these people are on the grid? I do. I don't know what they're all doing here. I don't know what job role they've got. One of these fine days on a different grid walk, we'll stop a few of them and just try and find out what they're doing here and what they're trying to achieve. But then notice how the grid just starts to get a little bit less busy. Jensen Button's going to be, we're not going to try and talk to him, but he's going to be, he's not in the car. He's playing the cool bit as usual. I don't know where he is, actually. In fact, he's not even on the grid, is he? Can't see him anywhere. So JB is very cool. JV over here, Mr. Villeneuve in the BAR, as ever. Look, he's under the... I've just been moved out of the way. Hello, Bernard, how are you? I'm not even going to talk to him today. Can't be bothered. Have a look at this. Look, JV underneath the mandatory umbrella, and it's not even raining. And he's sitting there, he's got his patch on his nose, look, to keep, so he can breathe a little bit better. How you doing, mate? And he's just focused, calm. The last thing he needed was me sticking my thumb up saying, how you doing? He's really trying to focus on what he's going to do. He's quite near the front of the grid. What is he, 6th on the grid, I think. and he can go you know, right down the inside. There's loads and loads of space down there when they get moving a little bit further. And Jordan have got on to a little bit of a cover-upper as well, haven't they? Look, truly getting in his car, getting ready. And we got the same situation again, where we got this heat-proof cover. Again, we're going to see that coming off. And the mechanics is so well rehearsed. They work together so well as a team to make sure that they've got what they need. Well, I think that's given you probably a bit better feel of just the general action that's going down here on the grid. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks very much indeed, Martin. And there's Heidi and David Coulthard, Heidi, his fiancée, wishing him luck. Involved, of course, in that terrible accident in the week. One or two little facts and figures here that just might enhance your enjoyment of the upcoming Spanish Grand Prix. Hakkinen chasing a hat-trick of wins. Jackie Stewart, the only other driver to achieve this. Coulthard yet to win back-to-back Grand Prix, made his debut here. Schumacher scored his first Grand Prix victory for Ferrari. That was in the rain in '96, cloudy but still dry at the moment, and a great record in every Spanish Grand Prix at the Catalunya circuit. But Ferrari haven't won here since Schumacher in '96. And I think Lauda was the last time they had a pole in Spain. Okay, Michael Schumacher, just to confirm how things are looking, going to the 5th race of the season. 20 points clear of Coulthard. He's a couple ahead of Mika Hakkinen, then Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher. And Fisichella there for Benetton. He'll do well to score today. So Mika Hakkinen's won the last couple of races here. It's a very popular venue, this, for British fans. It's been a happy hunting ground for our drivers. Hawthorne, Graham Hill, Stewart, Hunt, Mansell 3 times, and Damon Hill have all reigned in Spain. How will Jensen go today, I wonder?